It's pretty clear that the NFL better get ready for Judge Berman to rule in the NFLPA's favor in this case. What happened in that courtroom that gives us that impression?
Sal, it was fascinating to be in that courtroom. Judge Berman essentially asked every question that every fan has had about this particular case since it unfolded.
How so?
And he attacked the NFL, and he attacked the NFL on the grounds of what proof they had that Tom Brady was a part of the scheme word that was used 8 to 10 times in the Wells report. Said, do not read anything into what he says, that often he will play the devil's advocate. So we want to give that warning at the outset. But after he said that, he proceeded to question. Certainly seemed to be stammering and stuttering there on the stand, coming up with answers that he kept falling back on, that it was within the powers of Roger Goodell under the collective bargaining agreement to protect the integrity of the game. But even the judge himself said, and I use this exact phrase, I'm having trouble, his words, having trouble figuring the evidence for the conspiracy or scheme that relates to the January 18th AFC Championship game.
Let's get everybody up to date. There is no settlement in this case. And the judge, along with magistrate judge, mediator James Francis, has agreed to help these two parties on two tracks: settlement negotiations and litigation at the same time. And it's pretty clear when you listen to the judge's questions that the Wells report is on trial. And this is exactly what the NFL did not want. The NFL has basically been saying this is a labor case, and it's all about the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, and the agreed-to powers by the players to allow Roger Goodell to be the final arbiter of the NFL, in particular with cases involving integrity of the game. But it's pretty clear when you listen to the judge that the Wells report was on trial.
Well, Sal, the very first issue that Judge Berman went into today was whether or not it was an independent investigation. And he questioned Dan Nash about his credentials, Ted Wells' credentials, and the law firm of Paul Weiss, and whether or not they were independent and how they could prove they were independent when somebody like Lauren Reisner was on the stand conducting the cross-examination of Tom Brady during the June 23rd appeal at the NFL office.
So how do you interpret that?
I think the judge clearly had some questions, and he wanted the NFL to explain why it felt that Ted Wells was acting as an independent investigator, which he clearly questioned.
At one point, Judge Berman, Adam, asked one of the NFL lawyers, do you have evidence that Tom Brady deflated the footballs? What was the response?
They pointed to the accumulation of evidence, not one specific finding, but to the texts that were sent between McNally and Yastrzemski, the fact that they referred to a deflator. And Judge Berman said, but what evidence do you have specifically to the January 18th AFC Championship game that shows that Tom Brady was part of a scheme? And essentially they fell back every single time on Tom Brady being generally aware of the conduct that went on, and it was more probable than not that something with the New England Patriots happened that day.
And Adam, we've always said, when looking at the Wells report, that generally aware is a preponderance of evidence to bring somebody to trial. That is, of course, the standard for a civil case, but not something that would be upheld in a courtroom. And so it sounds like the judge is looking at the Wells report with quite a bit of skepticism.
Well, no question. Now, listen, again, I mentioned to you that he asked the questions that fans wanted to hear. And first he had Dan Nash on the stand for about 20 minutes where he grilled the NFL. And he asked some very hard questions that the NFL, again, fell back on the CBA to explain. And then he called up Jeffrey Kessler, the lead attorney for the NFLPA. And one of the first questions he asked him is, why did you destroy the cell phone? And Jeffrey Kessler said, and I quote here, Sal, that it could have been done a different way and should have been done a different way because he did everything else that Ted Wells asked for. But he also said, Jeffrey Kessler did, that in relation to the cell phone being destroyed, quote unquote, this is the most overblown issue in my 40 years of litigating cases. And he went on to explain exactly what happened with that particular cell phone, that Tom Brady offered it, that the NFL had the records of the texts from Yastrzemski, from McNally, from all the equipment people. in Foxborough with the New England Patriots organization, and essentially Jeffrey Kessler dismissed that, but admitted that they probably should have turned over the cell phone, that it could have and should have been done in a different way.